Coming up, as primary school teachers vote to strike, we're inside a school which couldn't find a relief teacher today. But we begin with exploitation, illegal rostering and wage theft. Just some of the allegations coming from Homecare support workers across New Zealand. Tonight, those workers are calling on the government to hold employers to account. They say settlements were supposed to help create a workforce where the majority of workers had guaranteed hours and a wage. But instead, they say their payments are their hours are erratic, and rising fuel prices will force many to quit. Indira Stewart and cameraman Dan Cook investigate an industry in crisis.
It's 6 a.m. and Samoan support worker Etevise Ioane is already up preparing for her first client of the day. It's a long day ahead, and while she has some gaps in between clients, it'll be 13 hours until she returns home at the end of her workday. She works in Counties Manukau, an area with a big Pacifica population.
I really enjoy it because it's like looking after my own parents or grandparents.
Etevise began her career as a support worker after spending 30 years working as a missionary nurse overseas. And while she loves the job, she says it's been both challenging and stressful.
A lot of hours have been cut or change of agreements and guaranteed hours. I know that we're supposed to be paid extra hours on top of guaranteed hours if we work outside of our country, guaranteed hours, but sometimes that has not been the case.
Like many across the sector, Etevise and her co-workers have had continued cuts to their working hours. A guaranteed hours settlement, which came into effect in April last year, provides fixed hours over selected days and times agreed to by a support worker and their employer. It's supposed to help stabilise Etevise's income, but it hasn't.
It impacts us a lot because that means that because we still have our bills to pay.
Other workers are echoing her claims.
I haven't had an experience of having a wage that is the same all the time. It's been going up and down, and I've had my guaranteed hours cut twice.
I've been with my employer 12 months, and only just in the past 6 weeks have I been offered guaranteed hours, and those hours were only 4.
That's 2 of several workers who feature in this story but can't be identified because they're afraid they might lose their jobs. Some of them are gagged by clauses in their employment contracts, but Checkpoint can reveal they work across 4 of the major providers in the sector. On top of unstable employment hours, they also say the current travel rates they receive aren't enough.
This is the route I take in the morning because I cannot go on the motorway. There's no way I can get on the motorway now.
On a normal workday, Etevise will be paid for her travel in between each client.
Most of the times it's very busy, and we just finished all the road works here on this area, so that has also been a real delay for us.
According to the settlement, she'll get a flat rate of $4.19 for any distance she travels under 15 kilometres. If her next client is more than 15 kilometres away, she'll be paid the minimum wage of $16.50 an hour for her travel time and a mileage rate of 50 cents a kilometre.
We use our own cars, and we are also encouraged to make sure we have insurance because we take clients to do their shopping, and we take them out to other appointments.
So if Etevise travels 1 kilometre to her next client, she'll receive $4.19. If she travels 14 kilometres, she'll still receive that flat rate of $4.19. Workers say that system forces them to pay out of their own pockets each week just to do their job.
It's not enough. I, on a Wednesday, do 54.2k, but I only get paid 33.3k. So I'm subsidising 20.9k out of my own pocket.
I had one job that was done on my car at 32 k's there and back, and they refused to pay that.
I did have a client, and the cares I had to do for that client, it racked up 70k, and then they didn't pay me for it.
For Etevise, that mileage rate just isn't enough.
I just had my car service. It took me, I think I rang the AA 10 times within a month because I had a faulty battery, but I couldn't afford, so it was very stressful for me. Every time I go to start the car, I pray that it goes.
Since the travel rate was put in place, around the country the average price of petrol per litre has gone up 36%, from $1.77 in October 2016 to $2.41. And despite 2 government reviews during that time, the travel rates haven't budged.
Sometimes it's a real struggle to go to work when they can't afford the petrol. But yeah, it's put a stress on all of us.
Other workers share similar stories.
A third of my wage would go to running my vehicle. There's been times where I haven't had any petrol in my car, and I've had clients that I need to go and service, and I don't know how I'm going to get to them. There have been times when that's happened. I've had times when I've been on the job and I've had to ring one of my fellow support workers to come and pick me up because I'm on the side of the road and I've run out of petrol. That's happened twice.
South Canterbury support worker Jenny agrees.
We are subsidising service. We're paying more. It's not enough, and we're all struggling, and there's people leaving this profession. They cannot afford to do this.
Workers are also frustrated over being constantly underpaid. Jenny reads anonymous comments from other workers who are fed up.
Why are people having to struggle and stress for so long about unpaid income? What other industry gets away with breaking government legislation and acts? The stress level gets pretty high. We as support workers are not supposed to have a brain to work out we've been short paid.
32 weeks straight, every single week I had to email them, follow up with phone calls, and every single email I had to attach it to the union because they just were ignoring me and they were not paying what they had owed me. And I eventually had to attention it to the CEO of the company, and only then did I get a response.
Every week we're fighting for our pay. It never used to be like that.
Look, honestly, if you get a pay slip that's accurate, you actually are quite surprised.
Many workers say they've written to the Health Minister, David Clark, calling for a review. Now some are filing personal grievance claims to the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, with several collectives of support workers preparing to file class action lawsuits against their employers. In April last year, the government announced a $2 billion pay equity settlement for this industry. Enliven is just one of many providers who were represented in those negotiations. That settlement redressed past undervaluation of care and support work and was just one of the stepping stones towards creating regularised jobs for about 55,000 workers.
So all of our workers, the workers that are employed on as permanent employees, absolutely have guaranteed hours.
That's Andrea McLeod, the General Manager for Enliven, Etavise's employer, explaining how they implement guaranteed hours. According to the settlement, even if a provider can't fill your guaranteed hours with work, you must still be paid for your guaranteed hours. If, after a week of consultation, they can't fill your hours, you'll receive 2 weeks' notice before your hours get reduced.
So we enter into a consultation period and we give 2 weeks' notice. So during that time we pay their guaranteed hours. We work really hard to see if we can fill them, but there are times where we can't do that.
Until there's been an agreed change to the guaranteed hours.
We continue to pay it.
You continue to pay
even if we can't fill it.
But if within 3 weeks you can't, then the guaranteed hours...
They might reduce. Yeah.
And
they go up. They also go up, yeah.
When they've got guaranteed hours and then they work additional hours, are you paying the additional hours or with all your workers?
Yep.
We asked these questions because many of Enliven's workers say that's not true. And a comparison of their pay slips against the rosters they've worked over the past several months support their statements.
There's a few challenges around how we invoice for those cancelled visits and guaranteed hours top-ups, but that's an issue that Enliven is working on in the background again. That doesn't affect how the Enliven support worker gets paid.
Ms McLeod says providers are grappling with the changes they've had to implement in the last 3 years. So is it sustainable?
It's challenging. There are providers who are considering whether they can continue.
And is the government listening?
That's a challenging question. I like to be positive to say, yes, it feels like we're starting to be heard.
Since the travel rates were put in place by the government committed to reviewing them every year. But despite 2 reviews so far, they decided that no changes would be made. Etu spokesperson Kirsty McCulley says the industry is at a critical point.
I'd say we're getting to a critical level of frustration that is felt by home support workers across the country. We have daily instances of people reporting their frustration and talking about leaving the sector.
It's a workforce that she says is dominated by women, a significant portion of which are Māori and Pacific, as well as increasing numbers of migrant workers. Due to an ageing population, government figures show the demand for workers in this industry is expected to increase by between 50 and 75% in the next 8 years.
We know that the government's intending to do work on the regularisation of the workforce, but those steps need to be taken immediately. Otherwise, we're going to potentially lose a lot of well-trained, highly skilled home support workers from the workforce at a time when we can't afford it.
Jenny says workers are desperate for the government to act and makes her plea to the Prime Minister.
Jacinda, please, I really want you to take this on board and fix this sector. It touches everybody. It's your parents, it's your brothers, your sisters, it's my family, it's my loved ones, it's me and my future. We need to make sure the service works and works well.
Mo te hōtaka o te ahipone, ko Indira Stewart aho.